Hey everyone, Deluxe here. I just wanted to say before this chapter that due to school and my life getting really busy, I'm going to be uploading chapters every other Saturday at 12 p.m. Central. I was trying to put out chapters every week, but as some people saw, there would be times where I uploaded 3 or 4 times in a row and then not have a chapter for like 3 weeks. I want to minimize that and have a consistent schedule. Thanks everyone for your understanding, and let's get into this Riaz versus Sona rating game. We all gathered in Azazel's room for our last meeting the night before our decisive match against the Sea Tree Familia. Matters concerning Biko and Konako's sister seemed to have been put aside for the time being, since Tanin and I managed to drive them both away. There was some suggestion that the Prez had gained more prestige from the outcome of the encounter, seeing as we repelled Volley's group and unlocked my balance breaker. Evidently, those were both highly regarded developments. It sounded like that she hadn't mentioned that I had tamed my balance breaker through touching her breasts, though. There was no way she could report such a thing. The first thing Azazel did was question me. Issei, what's the status on your balance breaker? Right, I've managed to unlock it, but there are still a few conditions. I began to explain them one by one. Although I could call upon my boosted gear scare mail, using it freely was still a distant goal. First, when I activate my balance breaker, it takes a bit of time to complete the transformation. The jewel on the back of the gauntlet shows a countdown until it's finished. Also, I can't use my sacred gear during that time. I can't double my power or transfer it to anyone else. There's no way I could stop the countdown once it started either. I can only use it once a day, and even if I release my balance breaker state early, my sacred gear will lose most of its power. Azazel nodded. So my data was right. Most previous Red Dragon Emperors were the same. However, there were a few who could still use their sacred gear after dismissing the armor. Anyway, how long do you need to transform? 2 minutes. You should be able to reduce that with some training, once you get used to it. For now, those 2 minutes mean the difference between life and death. To put it bluntly, you'll be useless in battle during that time. Practically anyone will be able to take you down. You'll be able to think hard about how to keep safe while you're transforming. Those 2 minutes are your greatest weakness. I'd only recently unlocked my balance breaker, and already Azazel was criticizing it right to my face. I should have expected as much, but that did make the first objective relatively clear. What was I supposed to do during those 2 minutes? Run away? Your boosted gear's normal abilities, its doubling and transfer ones, are still important given their versatility. But your balance breaker will be indispensable when facing strong foes. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses. So how long will your balance breaker last? At its full strength, 30 minutes. The more I use my power, the shorter the time. Not bad for your first use. We owe that to your training. But it won't be enough in an official rating game. Even the full 30 minutes is still too little. Games could go on for a long time. You're going to have to think of ways to increase that maximum. After everything I'd done, I still hadn't grown enough. When would I be able to catch up to Volley? It made sense that the usefulness of the balance breaker depended on the time and place. However, achieving mine was a significant milestone. But depending on the battle situation, there would still be times when using the regular abilities was the better option. Fortunately, I could still transfer energy in my balance breaker mode, but that greatly increased the likelihood of running out of gas. That was fine as long as I could defeat my opponent first, but it was still a risky tactic. Yeah, that was a tough one. As I racked my slow, befuddled brain, Azazel flashed me a lecherous look and made a poking gesture with his finger. I responded with a grin, sticking my finger into the air the same way he was. With that, he offered to shake my hand, which I readily accepted. Yeah, Teach, I did it. I unlocked my balance breaker mode by poking the Prez's breasts. We communicated all of this in silence. We were both overflowing with emotion when we turned back to the matter at hand. Riaz, how much does Sona Citri know about your familia? Azazel inquired. I'm sure she has at least a rough idea of each of our skills and abilities. For example, She knows about Issei's, Kiba's, Akino's, Azia's, and Zenovia's main weapons and fighting styles. Our Magic against Riser's familia was widely viewed, after all. Gasper's sacred gear and Konoko's background are fairly public information, too. So, she has a decent grasp on all of you then. And what do you know about her side? I'm familiar with what Sona could do. The same goes for her queen, her vice chairwoman, along with several other members of her familia. I've yet to confirm their skills, though. So, we're the ones at a disadvantage. Well, that's often the case when it comes to raiding games and actual battles. We can't discount the possibility of sacred gears evolving and changing mid-combat too. There would be no letting down your guard. You're facing 8 opponents. Is Azazel cautioned? Yes. 1 king, 1 queen, 1 rook, 1 knight, 2 bishops, and 2 pawns. From the look of it, she hasn't used all of her pieces yet, but she's still in equal numbers to us, answered Rias. With Azazel here, the discussion kept going on and on. The press wore a serious expression and listened to him intently. Let me sum it up for you. Our opponent was a team of 8, and there were 8 of us as well. The Prez, Agano, Kiba, Konoko, Azia, Zenovia, Gasper, and me. It was an even match in terms of numbers. Next, Azazel began to jot down some notes and a graph on the whiteboard. In the raiding game, players are divided into 4 general fighting types: power, technique, wizard, and support. Of these, Rias is a wizard type, as is Akano. These combatants excel in a variety of magic abilities. Kiba is a technique type, with impressive speed and skills. Zenovia is a power type, with excellent speed, the kind of player who can aim for a one-hit kill. Azia and Gasper are both support types. To analyze them both a little deeper, Azia leans towards a wizard type, while Gasper is closer to a technique type. Konoko is a power type, and lastly, we got Issei. You're also a power type. However, your gift ability, you're good at functioning as a support type player as well. This is a lot to remember all of a sudden. Azazel was saying that there were a bunch of common fighting styles and strategies amongst familia members competing in raiding games. Evidently, I was a power type fighter with some support type abilities. Azazel drew vertical and horizontal axes across the whiteboard, dividing it into 4 quadrants and writing the names of each type above the square. Next, he began to place a number of dots along the graph to illustrate our respective abilities and type affinities. He put me in the power category, but not too far from the support type. Kiba was in the technique box, Zenovia was in the power type area, and other members were clearly spread out in other portions of the chart. Looking at it this way, we formed a pretty balanced team. That said, we didn't have a wizard type who also had some talent in the power category. In other words, we didn't have an armamentalist among our ranks. Our instructor drew a circle around me, Zenovia, and Konoko in the power category. What power type combatants need most be wary of are counter types, a particularly troublesome subclass of technique type players. When fighting opponents with the counter type sacred gears, power type fighters like Issei, Konoko, and Zenovia may have their strength turned against them. These kind of enemies essentially reflect your attack back at you, combined with their own strength. The stronger you are, the worse the damage a counter-type battler can deal you. It was certainly an intimidating idea, having my blows thrown back. If that happened when I was using my balance breaker, it might take a few of us out at the same time. If they have people like that, I'll just have to push through the raw power, Zenovia declared boldly. Azazel, however, shook his head. You might be able to get away with that in some cases, but not if your opponent is particularly skilled in reversals. The best course is to refrain from attacking them as much as possible. Counter-type fighters are much better dealt with using spellcasters, like Akano, or technique warriors like Kiba. Even Gasper's special vampire skills won't do well. It's all about compatibilities, advantages, and weaknesses. Power-type fighters are strong, but there's a lot of risk involved if they take on a technique-type fighter. Zenobia offered nothing in response to Azazel's explanation. Given her abundance in combat experience, she probably recognized the truth in what he was saying. Our instructor turned to me. Issei, you unlocked your balance breaker, but do you think you could win against Kiba? To be frank, with his speed, I probably wouldn't even be able to get in a hit. That was my honest opinion. It was undoubtedly true that my balance breaker possessed an immense destructive potential. However, if I were to go up against Kiba, I doubted I would win. I mean, I just unlocked mine, while he had his for more than a month now. More than anything, however, there was a vast gulf between our respective levels in combat experience. The strength I used when fighting against Volley had been temporary. It was only because he got me so pissed that I'd been able to call upon it at all. Under normal circumstances, I simply wasn't strong enough. Exactly. Whether you're fighting Kiba or anyone else, you leave openings for reversals. Issei, if you don't work on some kind of way of dealing with counter-type fighters, you'll never be able to best someone like Kiba. That's what battle compatibility is all about. So my first obstacle is that pretty boy? If I can't pass this hurdle, Volley will forever be out of reach. Azazel's eyes fell onto the prez. Riaz, if Sona Citra's Familia has gotten fighters who specialize in counters, they could end up taking Issei out in a single blow. They could turn his enormous power back onto him in an instant. You'll need to devise some sort of strategy to cope with that possibility. But if he's fighting a woman, that won't be easy. The prez responded. At first, I wasn't sure what she meant, but then it dawned on me. Dress break. He's the enemy of all women. I don't think anyone will want to fight him. Konako retorted. Konako's retort was biting. That remark scored a critical hit on me. Somewhere along the way, I become the enemy of all women. The prez nodded in agreement. It was unanimous. Right. Any girl on the opposing team wouldn't want to fight a guy who could make their clothes come flying off so easily. It looked like Konako was back to her old self. That was a relief. Given what happened the other day, I was worried about her. Had she perhaps managed to overcome her issues? Still, this was a problem. I spent a lot of time devising my new ability during my training, but I might not have the chance to face any female opponents. As if to salt the wound, I'd actually been able to pull it off now that I unlocked my balance breaker. My new skill was a different style attack from my dress break. By the way, Issei, Sona Citri is undoubtedly aware that you achieved your balance breaker during Biko and Kuroka's attack. You should keep your wits about you. They'll likely try to defeat you before you can complete your transformation. So Teach was worried about me? I flashed him a forced smile. Don't worry about me. I'm an adult. I replied with a grin as I brushed my hair to one side. What's up with you? You look like you matured, Azazel remarked. Teach, I'm all grown up now. I mean, I got the chance to poke them, you know? I nodded, giving him a thumbs up. Yeah, I had reached an exceptional level of existence, climbing the steps of adulthood. Ah, got it. Teach, don't act dismissive. I've reached the cups of a new plane of being. Kiba, I said, putting my hands on his shoulder. What? He returned with a puzzled expression. I stared into his face with an enlightened grin as I told him the good news. There are two kinds of men, those who poked breasts and those who haven't. I'm the former. It's amazing. Nothing compares. I've crossed over to the other side. Against all expectations, Kiba looked upon me with pity, shaking his head back and forth. President, this is no good. We should see that Issei gets some more counseling before the match. Now that I've risen to enlightenment, it seemed like the pretty boy no longer comprehended my words. Still, this wasn't Kiba's fault. I was the sinner here, the one who has sunk his digits into the his breasts. Yeah, I'm a wicked creature. From now on, I'll have to be known as the Darkness Welsh Dragon. I'm scared. Issei's smile is so creepy. Stay away from him, Gatsby. He'll infect you with his disease. Gasper and Konako cast me with fearful looks. Even cross-dressers and petite girls understood my power. Azazel put away his whiteboard marker as he concluded his strategy meeting. I put your chances of winning this match above 80%. I think you'll win, but I can't say it's definite. The respective values of each of your units aren't absolute either. Like in actual chess, the relative importance of each piece depends on the situation on the board. We each focused intently on his words. They left a strong impression on us, enough to be engraved deep into our hearts. I've lived a long time and seen a lot of battles. During my time, I've seen people grasp victory despite impossible odds. Don't underestimate anyone. Even if they only have a 1% chance of beating you, fight to win. That's the last piece of advice I got for you. Following Azazel's lesson, we discussed tactics with members left out of the conversation so far. We were going to win this. Absolutely. On the day of the decisive match, we assembled a vast magic circle set up beneath the Grimoire residence for the sole purpose of transporting us to the venue. Each member of the Familia had taken their place in the circle, ready to make the jump to the battlefield. Apart from Ozzy and Zenobia, we were all wearing our Kuo Academy summer uniforms. Ozzy was wearing her nun outfit, while Zenobia was dressed up in a bondage-like combat uniform she had worn when we first met. Both of them looked to be in high spirits. The Citri family was also clad in the Kuo Academy uniforms. The press's father and mother, Milikis and Azazel, each stood outside the circle, offering words of encouragement. You've tasted defeat once before, Riez. Be sure you win this time. You're fighting as the next head of the family, Riez. Do us proud. The same goes for everyone else, alright? You can do it, Auntie Riez. I've taught you everything I could. The rest is up to you all. Sir Zex and Gravia weren't here to see us off. They had already gone to the VIP lounge, reserved for important spectators. From what I heard, high-ranking guests from groups other than the three great powers were in attendance. Azazel will be joining them after seeing us off. This raiding game sure seemed to be attracting a lot of attention. Perhaps that was to be expected of an unofficial battle between two up-and-coming young demons. Both sisters and demon kings, no less. Tension filled the air as the magic circle let out a burst of light. The battle was finally underway. On the other side of the jump through the magic circle was an area filled with tables. Were we in some kind of spacious restaurant? I glanced around before realizing that we seemed to be in a dining hall of a food court, surrounded by fast food restaurants. Was this also a replica of a location in the human world, in a purpose-built alternate dimension? The abilities and powers of top-ranking demons were beyond incredible. Huh? I know this place. The arrangement of the outlet stores struck a chord in my memory. I stepped out to get a better look and glanced around. Yeah, we were in a vast shopping plaza. Familiar businesses lined the wall, and there was an atrium with a glass ceiling, light spilling from above. I know this place well. I wouldn't have expected them to use the mall near Kuo Academy as a stage for this battle, the Prez remarked, striding up beside me. Yeah, this was the exact shopping plaza we all so often frequented. At that moment, a broadcast sounded over the loudspeakers. Welcome everyone. I, Grafia, Queen of Sir Zex Lucifer's family, will act as arbitrator for today's raiding game between the House of Grimoire and Citri. Just like the last time during our battle with Riser Phoenix, Grafia was the announcer. Hold on, wasn't her introduction a little different from last time though? I didn't seem to remember describing herself as a servant of the House of Grimoire, but this time, she clearly stated that she was a member of Sir Zex's Familia. Was this because it was a different kind of match? In the name of my master, Sir Zex Lucifer, I shall watch over the contest between the two houses. Thank you, everyone, for your cooperation. Today's battlefield is a replica of the department store near Lady Ria's and Lady Sona's school, Kuo Academy, prepared especially in an isolated plane. The fact that the battlefield held a familiar setting might have made things comparatively easier for us. But the same can be said for the Siege Familia. Surely, they were familiar with this place too. The shopping mall that had become our battlefield was a 2-story building, but not an exceptionally high one. That said, both floors were quite long, given the structure and the sizable horizontal footprint. There was also a parking lot on the roof and a multi-story parking garage adjacent to it. Both teams have been transported to their respective bases. Lady Rias' home base is located in the east wing on the 2nd floor, while Lady Sona's is in the west wing on the 1st floor. All pawns, please proceed to the immediate vicinity of the opposing team's home base to use a promotion. The bases were on the opposite sides of the shopping mall. Ours upstairs to the east, theirs below to the west. Nearby, I saw a pet shop, an arcade, a food court, a bookstore, and a drugstore. Sona's base was located by a large secondhand bookstore and a sporting goods store. There was also a supermarket, an electronics store, another fast food restaurant, and an all-general household goods shop on the way to the enemy territory. When the battlefield started, each team was supposed to aim for the other end of the building. It was a simple enough path, but of course, it wouldn't be that easy. There are a number of special rules in effect during this match. These have been provided in a written form between both teams. Please consult them before beginning. Each side has been granted a single vial of Phoenix Tears. The match will commence in 30 minutes. You may use your time until then to devise your strategies. Contact with the opposing team during this time is forbidden. After the announcement, we all quickly gathered. There was no time to waste. So the battlefield is modeled on the shopping mall near Kuo Academy, which makes this an indoor battle. The press commented, looking over the map on the structure layout and the interior on the nearby wall. She pulled out a special diagram, dividing the field into an 8x8 grid shaped like a chessboard. We established ourselves on the food court as we devised our strategy. I hadn't known that the raiding game could be an indoor fight. My assumption was most battles took place in open fields, with bases on opposite sides, as we had during our match against Riser Phoenix. Instead, we were in a mall near our school. We often dropped by here on our way home after class. Probably more than 90% of the students were familiar with this place. The Prez, Ozzy, and I swung by on our days off too. Riaz looked over the document outlining the special rules before addressing us. It says here that we mustn't destroy any department store that serves as a battlefield. In other words, we'll have to refrain from doing anything too flashy. She narrowed her eyes as if in deep thought. I see. That puts the vice president, Issei, and me at a disadvantage. We can't use any attacks with wide areas of effect, Zenobia remarked. She was right about that, seeing as this was an indoor skirmish, and that we couldn't risk damaging the structure too much. I wouldn't be able to use my boosted gear to charge my dragon shot. The fire magic I picked up at great pain during my long training with Tanin would be useless too. I could end up burning this place to the ground. For her part, Akano wouldn't be able to wield her thunder magic unless she was on the rooftop, right? If she didn't hold back, this place would get blasted to bits. Zenovia's reckless strikes with Durando were no good as well. Even at the best of times, that holy sword was incredibly dangerous, so she wouldn't be able to wave it around so carelessly. Well, this is a problem. Most of my large-scale attacks will be off limits, Akano said, raising her hand to her cheek. Kiba let her sigh, offering his own observation. Gasper's eyes will be less effective here too. There's a lot of places to hide, what with all the outlet stores. All the goods look like they've been reproduced, so there are many obstacles to hinder his vision. Our opponents may also try to ambush us in the dark. When you consider our individual characteristics, this is truly a disadvantageous location. Our Familia's forte is over-the-top combat. Toning it down limits our options. What a mess. We may have been strong, but this rule completely upended everything. The Prez, however, shook her head. Actually, we've been prohibited from using Gasper's eyes at all. That's another one of the supplementary rules listed here. The use of Gasper Vladi's sacred gear is prohibited. The reason is clear enough, given that he can't fully control it yet. The organizers don't want his sacred gear running wild and ruining this match. We've also been banned from letting Issei offer his blood to him. Gasper must also use those sacred gear limiting glasses that Azazel made. As they are for his exclusive use, they should have no adverse effect on his body, it says here. Those preparations really have come in handy. Yet another problem. Gasper's sacred gear was off limits. Well, now that the president mentioned it, I had heard that his training hadn't gone so well. He had made some fair progress, but controlling his eyes was still way off. I couldn't help but wonder whether releasing him outside had truly been a good idea. So, he's only allowed to fight with magic and vampire powers? I questioned. The president nodded. That's right. In any event, freezing time would have a considerable risk. Not only does the other team have a number of counter-type fighters, but Saji's sacred gear also specializes in absorbing other people's abilities. There's no telling what it could have led to. On top of that, they could distract Gasper with illusions, and there are other ways to deprive him of his eyesight. We're better off not using his sacred gear during the fight. It's only natural that they want us to play it safe. Folly had said something similar, that experienced opponents easily dealt with abilities that activated via eyesight. Gasper had already put on the glasses. The press continued, saying, a raiding game isn't something that can be won with brute force or the strength of one's power. The situation on the board can change completely depending on the particular battlefield or rules. Raiding games are popular because demons who lack immense power can rise to victory with good judgment and tactics. The rules this time may be at our disadvantage, but if we can't cope, we won't win this match or any future ones. There's a saying in chess that is equally true here. Even a pawn could take a king. Anyone could win if they employ the proper strategy. Akano nodded in concurrence. Indeed, we may well find ourselves faced with the indoor battlefield in the future raiding game matches too. When that time comes, like today, we won't be able to exercise our full strength, which means that it's a good opportunity for us, the perfect chance to get used to an indoor team battles. Faced with this intellectual discussion, I timidly raised my hand with a question. Prez, I spent all my training trying to increase my power to unlock my balance breaker, and I didn't really get the chance to practice holding back. I know. We've been blindsided this time. The battlefield and rules may be randomly selected, but still, do try to restrain yourself as much as possible. You could end up blowing away the whole shopping mall. I'm sorry about making it so difficult for you, but try to stick to hand-to-hand combat. Right. I mean, I'm pretty worried about this, to be honest. Seriously. This setting put power-type fighters like me at a real disadvantage. Still, if I'm going to aim for the top and fight in more raiding games in the future, I had to get used to these kind of conditions. I felt like crying at the thought of the challenges that lay ahead. I never imagined that the summer of training would end up proving completely pointless. Come to think of it, Azazel had said something about situations like this. Your balance breaker is a completely indispensable weapon. But just so you realize, there are no absolutes in raiding games. There are demons without a single balance breaker wielding individual in their familia who still manage to come out on top. I hadn't fully understood what he meant back then, but I felt as if I did now. On a battlefield with rules like this, balance breakers weren't surefire trump cards. That knowledge was more than a bit discouraging. Once we go on the attack, the problem will be the shopping plaza's atrium, Reyes explained, pausing to glance at the map. It can be approached from both top and bottom floors on either side of the mall. Akano then chimed in, saying, another possibility would be to strike from the car park, but they will undoubtedly send someone to watch out from there. Yes, the same applies to the rooftop. In any case, as we aren't allowed to step outside the shopping mall, there are only 3 routes. We'll have to choose to move through the building, cross the rooftop, or go to the car park, the press concluded. I wonder whether there'd be cars around. The store shelves and merchandise were replicated, so vehicles might have been too, appended Akano. The press's discussion with her queen left nothing out. This was yet another demonstration of what a queen was supposed to do for their king. Kiba raised his hand with a proposal. President, I'll head up to the rooftop parking lot. There's a staircase nearby, I can scout things out. The Prez nodded. Please, you tell. With that, he hurried to the nearest exit. Are the cars important? I asked doubtfully. I mean, why did it matter whether or not there were any vehicles? A car charging towards us would be trouble, don't you think? We also need to contemplate the possibility that they might use one as an explosive. Admittedly, I don't consider Sona the type to recklessly drive through a building, but we should acknowledge the prospect. The Prez responded. That made sense. Evidently, I still had a lot to learn. Everything lying around the battlefield could be used in a fight. A car could make a good weapon. You're really cautious, huh? I observed. Of course. But I feel as if this still isn't enough. Someone could easily hide in a vehicle, for example. Now that I think about it, we haven't checked the staff room either. We'll have to see to that. Issei, there are a lot of clothes stores here. Perhaps we can make use of your dress break technique. There's no end to things that we can account for in a shopping mall like this. Rios was pondering every detail, no doubt reluctant to overlook anything. She turned next to my cross-dressing underclassmen. Gasper, I want you to transform into a colony of bats and disperse throughout the mall. We'll need you to keep us informed of developments during the early stages of the match. Right. Whoa, Gasper was seriously fired up. It was his first raining game after all. Our group continued to deliberate on tactics for the next few minutes, leaving no possibility up to chance. By the time we were halfway through our pre-match discussion period, our strategy was more or less set in stone. The Prez glanced around at each of us. The raining game will be starting in 15 minutes. We'll meet back here in 10. Everyone, please relax until then. With those instructions, we were dismissed, going our separate ways. I was the only one who Rias had called back. Issei, now that you unlocked your balance breaker, the seal I placed on you to restrain 8 palm pieces has also been released. Yeah, it was as she said. With all my recent progress, I had the power of all my palm pieces at my disposal. Keep in mind, however, that while you may be able to access strength completely, your body still can't fully control it. I suspect that he also may hold back some of your power to keep from injuring you. Be careful. The might of the Red Dragon Emperor, when wielded without caution, could end up destroying its host. Gotcha. I'll be careful, Prez. My full potential had been revealed. I hope that one day I will be able to handle it adequately. Since the beginning, I owed my value as a pawn almost wholly to Drake. The strength that flowed inside me was his. My importance lay in being able to use his immense force. I would have to keep that in mind. Having given her warning, the Prez made her way to the food court and began to prepare a pot of tea. She was going to enjoy a nice, relaxing drink before the start of the battle. Gasper looked to have a similar idea, eating donuts from a nearby fast food place. Ozzy and Zenobia was sitting by, chatting by a hamburger shop. Kiba was pursuing a drugstore by the food court. Right. Seeing as everything in this building looked to be a perfect copy of its real-life counterpart, he was probably searching for medicines or items that he could bring with him to use if necessary. Everyone was trying to relax in their own ways. As for me, I turned around and headed for the bookstore near the food court. Yeah, it looked like I had been right. Just like everything else in here, the bookstore had been a perfect carbon copy as well. I made my way immediately through the shop to the erotic book sections. Here they are. Awesome. And all you could read porno paradise. Never did I dream a battlefield like this could exist. Where do I start? Is this how a treasure hunter feels when he stumbles upon a massive hoard of gold? I could pick and choose whatever I like. Then I wonder if it was possible to take these volumes home with me. I wanted nothing more. My 2 negative influences at school and all the other guys had started saying that the Prez and the others had moved in with me. I had lost my interest in erotic books. That wasn't true at all. I might have been living with a Prez, but if I tried to make a move on her, she would end up hating me forever. On the other hand, I still had a healthy sexual appetite, just as any high schooler would. So if I didn't do something, I would end up spending my days in agony. That was why I needed to vent my passions in a way I couldn't with the Prez or the others. If I only had a harem, then I wouldn't need these dirty books. But until then, I would have to make do with these. It was hard to find a chance to look at these kind of things in my room, with the present Ozzy staying there, which left me to only one choice, to read them now. Whoa, what gorgeous breasts. That said, these pictures can't compare to the beauty or size of the Prez's or Akino's. Regardless, it was simply marvelous imagining the feel of their chest as I browsed my periodicals. Issei, what are you doing? Oh dear, you're reading a very naughty book there. I suppose I do have plenty of time before the battle. An extraordinary soft sensation pressed against my back. Breasts. I knew this feeling. And this lusty sing-song voice. Akino. She was hugging me from behind, looking over my shoulder at the book in my hands. Akino, I'm not... I was just trying to see how detailed all these copied objects are. It was a terrible excuse. Nonetheless, Akino didn't get angry at me, merely flashing me a sweet smile. Oh, I don't mind. I don't think less of you. In fact, I'm relieved to see you acting so much like your usual self. She was even more tolerant of my perverted behavior than the Prez was. Akino's expression turned studious as she glanced at the open page. I see. So this is the kind of thing you like. Perhaps it was my imagination, but I thought she sounded weirdly serious. Was she also interested in this kind of material? Akino? I inquired quietly, puzzled by her reaction. In response, she pointed at the photo of the model in the book. Shall I dress up like this for you next time, Issei? The outfit she was talking about was a sexy video game one. It practically left the wearer nude. Only a few tiny pieces of cloth covered her privates. There wasn't even any underwear. Seriously? I couldn't help but ask. Were miracles like this possible? Seriously? Oh, you're a very special person to me, Issei. Assured Akino with a broad smile. Awesome. She was willing to dress up for me. Seriously, I would have to put in a special request with her when we had the chance. So erotic crossplay truly did exist. Suddenly, I couldn't stop my mind from wandering. This kind of outfit would be nice, but so would this one, and this one too. As my non-stop fantasies filled my mind, she tightened her embrace around me. Akino? You give me courage, Issei, she said in a vulnerable voice. I was startled at the sudden admission. Courage, huh? Come to think of it, the Prez said something similar while holding my hand during the meeting between the three great powers. I need to fight it. I'm scared of using the other power that flows inside me. I hate it. That's why I need you, Issei, for your courage. As she resolved to make use of those fallen angel abilities she so despised, those powers she wanted to be without. Given the circumstances right now, she was in no position to deny her innate strength. Refusing them would keep her from moving forward. I had no way of fully understanding, but I could see this was a harrowing challenge for her. If that's true, I'm happy to give you all the courage you need, I declared with a grin as I grasped her hand in my own. If I was good enough to help her find her strength that she needed, then I was honored. Will you be there, Issei? If I have to use my holy powers, if you're watching, I might be able to bring myself to wield them. Of course. If that's all you require, then I'll gladly do it. Thank you, Issei. I'm so happy. I know you belong to Riez, but won't you stay by my side? Akino's voice trailed off there, too low for me to properly make out what she was saying. She let go of my back, her eyes glistening. At this moment, she brought her face close. Issei, it's time. Just as Akino's lips were about to press against mine, Konako popped out of nowhere. She saw us. This was bad, seriously bad. Just a millimeter nearer, and we would have been kissing. I mean, those lips, they were unbelievably attractive. Still, if the press found out, she would kill me. If Riaz knew that I, her servant and pet, had been about to get intimate with someone else, she would utterly destroy me. Konako, this isn't... I stammered out, but the person in question merely let out a sigh, her eyes half closed. Oh dear, Konako, you saw us. Oh, thank you, Issei. I feel much better now. Back to her usual self, Akano turned to leave. Next time, you and me. She murmured something in passing as she departed. She looked almost regretful at having to go. No, I must have been imagining things. I was sure of it. That girl had been trying to come after me in full-on sadist mode. I nodded to myself with renewed certainty when Konako grabbed my hand. Konako? I was taken aback by her sudden gesture, but to my surprise, I saw that she was blushing. Please give me courage too. Right. She was going to also have to use that power that she had previously been repressing. Her hands were trembling. Konako must have been scared, terrified, that her Nekomata abilities would consume her. Sure, if you'll have me, I responded, holding her hand with a grin. I was happy to give Akano and Konako what they needed to overcome their fears. Issei, aren't you afraid of me because of my Nekomata? Konako inquired uncertainly. Not at all, I replied simply. Why would I have been afraid of her? Heck, I actually thought her cat-eared form was adorable and lovely. I knew about what happened with her sister, but there was no reason to shy away from Konako. At this, Konako seemed genuinely astonished. Nonetheless, she continued to stare down at the ground. Before our training, I said something awful to you. She was referring when I had addressed her without thinking, and she got angry at me. Don't worry about it. I was in the wrong there. I didn't know your situation, and I wasn't a very considerate upperclassman to you. That isn't true. I felt Konako's grip around my hand tighten. I'm going to use my Nekomata powers this time. The girl's sudden declaration nearly made me gasp. I don't want to be like my sister, but at this rate, I won't be able to help anyone, so I decided to use them. Determination burned in Konako's eyes. Had she overcome her mental hurdles when she told her sister that she wouldn't have anything to do with her anymore? Konako, I know you could do it. You'll overcome your Nekomata abilities, and then you could call yourself a Hellcat. A Hellcat? Yeah, like the name for the underworld plus cat. A Hellcat. I stated confidently, though even I knew it was an unorthodox way of trying to encourage her. Don't worry. If your Nekomata power is somehow getting up out of control, I'll stop you. I want to use my Red Dragon Emperor's powers, not just for myself, but to also look after my friends. And if your scary sister shows her face again, I'll protect you. I'll send her flying, so you don't need to feel afraid. My words were wholly sincere. I wasn't the brightest bulb in the pack, so that was the best I could come up with. But as contrived as those words might have been, I would put my life on the line to protect her. You are a gentle Red Dragon Emperor. Konako muttered something under her breath, but it didn't quite reach my ears. Something about being gentle, maybe? Whoa, Konako's cheeks are all red. What's wrong? Did I make a lecherous face again? It was time. We gathered in the center of the food court as we awaited the beginning of the match. Then an announcement rang throughout the shopping mall. It's time. Please remember that this will be a 3-hour blitz-style match. Now then, let the match begin. The rating game was underway. Hold on, a blitz-style match? So we only have a short time limit? No one told me about that sort of rule. So that's why we were given 30 minutes to strategize? I had to wonder if changing the rules so frequently was okay, but I suppose that's what gave the rating game so much depth. The press stood up from her chair, her expression radiating determination. Your instructions are as we discussed earlier. We will split up into groups. Issei and Konako will advance through the shopping mall. Yuto and Zenobia will proceed through the parking lot. Gasper will morph into a colony of bats and provide us with status updates throughout the building. Once conditions allow, Akano, Azi, and I will proceed along Issei and Konako's route. We were all equipped with the communication earpieces. Now then, my cute servant demons, we aren't going to lose again. This time, victory will be ours. Yeah, we all cried back in unison. We weren't going to let ourselves get defeated all over again. We were going to win, no matter what. Ready, Zenobia? Let's go. Okay, Kiba. Kiba and Zenobia were the first to set out. They sped off down the path that led to the multi-story car park. According to Kiba, it was populated with vehicles, albeit imitation ones. They were apparently undrivable. Now that they had gone, it was our turn. Konako, we're up. Right. She and I began to make our way through the shopping center. Konako had already declared to everyone that she was going to use her Nekomata powers. The press believed that the opposing team was anticipating that I burst into their base while fighting as little as possible to promote to a queen. To our opponents, Kiba and Zenobia moving through the garage would look like a distraction to lessen the resistance on my end. Once I had been promoted to queen, our opponents likely thought that we would fall back and launch a joint assault where the press would join into the fray. According to Riaz, that was what the chairwoman was expecting. Thus, our actual strategy was the opposite. I would proceed according to this chairwoman's expectations and launch an attack. However, our real offensive strategy involved Kiba and Zenobia. They weren't the diversion, I was. The brunt of the opposing force would come in for me, leaving the enemy king only lightly defending. Some people would be sent after Kiba and Zenobia too, but the chairwoman's best fighters would be dispatched to take me out. Kiba and Zenobia should be able to handle whatever they encountered without much issue. Then we would go after the king and checkmate. I was to use my Red Dragon Emperor abilities in a different way than usual. This time, my role wasn't to wield brute strength, but to combine my powers with the others. Good luck, Issei. Issei, you can do it. Don't lose. Oh, I'm looking forward to see you pull off something cool. The Prez, Ozzy, and Akano were all cheering me on. Whoa, I would have to put up a good show. Hold on, they weren't going with me though, so wouldn't they have to watch me on recording later? Konako and I advanced at a controlled pace, neither walking nor running. Given how easily our movements echoed through the building, enemies could easily find us if we weren't careful. Moreover, as the mob proceeded in a long straight line, there were few options to conceal ourselves as we advanced. It might have been on the large side of the shopping center, but crossing it wasn't going to take more than just 10 minutes with no other people around. Konako and I proceed with the utmost caution. Once we reached a certain point, we ducked behind a row of vending machines and surveyed the area ahead. As far as I could see, no one's waiting for us. It had already been 5 minutes since the beginning of the match, but because we were moving so cautiously, we had only moved a quarter of the way through the building. It would have looked like we were doing our best to avoid combat to any outside observer, but in actuality, we were the bait. Talk about nerve-wracking. At that moment, 2 cat ears popped out of Konako's head. They twitched so cutely. She had even grown a tail. Her sheer loveliness could have killed me. What was going on? Why was I so excited? I might not have a thing for petite figures, but perhaps I was discovering a fetish for beast girls. Konako's Nekomata mode was melting my heart. She pointed into the distance. They're moving. 2 people, directly ahead of us. You can tell? Yes. I've activated part of my sage magic, so that I could read the flow of their ki a little. I still can't make out the details though. So did those cat ears ever work like sensors then? That sounded incredibly useful. This sage magic allowed Konako to detect things nearby. Nekomata were supposed to be able to perceive what was happening around them through smell too, right? Konako was a cat after all, so her nose must have been better than a human-type demon like me. How long until they reach us? I inquired. Around 10 minutes. 10 minutes. We would have to be ready. I found myself wavering between using my secret gear regularly or invoking my balance breaker. The real issue was that I didn't know who we were going up against. My strength lay in physical force. My demon abilities were all but non-existent. Even if I boosted them with my sacred gear, I would quickly run out of gas. No matter how strong my power, I wouldn't stand a chance if I used it up so recklessly. I was always in danger. I would have to keep that in mind at all times. Konako was staring at me intently. It could have been my imagination, but I saw her cheeks flush. What? Nothing. You look like a brave warrior just now. You're usually so lewd, though. Seriously? Do I normally wear a lecherous expression? Well, it is true that I indulge in erotic fantasies often. I lifted my hand to my cheek. All of a sudden, Konako glanced up at the ceiling. Above us. What's going on? I followed her gaze and saw a long rope that was dangling from the ceiling. No, it's a line. And using it to swing across the mall like Tarzan of the Apes was. Hyoto, the first blow's mine. Saji. He came flying towards me, ready to deliver a kick, and there was someone else holding onto his back. I lifted my gauntlet into the air to shield myself. The impact of Saji's descent coursed through my arm. The force of the blow made me lose my combat composure for a brief moment, but I quickly corrected myself and prepared for my opponent's next move. Yo, Hyoto, Saji called. Next to him was a person that had been hanging to his back, a girl. She must have been a member of the student council. If I remember correctly, she was a first-year student. Hanging onto Saji's back must have been pretty difficult. A bunch of black snakes wholly entwined Saji's right arm. His sacred gear looked completely different from what I remembered. Last time, it had resembled a deformed lizard head. Had his sacred gear changed? What? Before I knew it, there was a black snake wound around my sacred gear too, linking it to his. He must have attached the line during the attack. There was another serpent on my other arm, but that didn't link to Saji's sacred gear. Rather, it seemed to lead somewhere far into the distance. Did it go all the way to the enemy base, perhaps? As strange as it felt, those tethers didn't seem to be absorbing my powers. Saji saw me glancing at his sacred gear and flashed me an amused grin. Well, I've been training too. This is the result. After I attached the line to the ceiling to get a lay of the mall, I happened to spot you two off in the distance. Neither of you seemed to notice me, so I took my chance to swing in. So that was how he found us. Yeah, I could understand that. Had I located him first, I would have tried a surprise attack too. We were similar, Saji and I, in so many ways. We were both perverted lechers, dedicated to our masters, single-minded and foolish, plunging headfirst in whatever we set our sights on. It was because of our commonalities that I'd known that we would face each other today. You aren't the only one who's been training. I spent more than half the summer being chased around by a dragon, I declared. Sorry, Saji. I'm going to have to eliminate you and push forward, because nothing is more important than us winning today. I had to catch up to Volley. He was going to come after me one of these days. When that happened, there was no telling whether he would try to hurt the Prez or Azia or any of the others. I had to get stronger to stop that from happening. Failure here wasn't an option. Yeah, I was ready and willing to fight. Unfortunately, it was in that moment that the unbelievable announcement echoed through the mall. One of Ria's Grammari's bishops has retired. What? Who? The game had just started. Azia was with the Prez, which left. Saji flashed me a grin. I'm guessing it was Gasper. Gasper? What on earth happened? I wondered. This was too fast. Wasn't he supposed to have transformed into a colony of bats to monitor the goings-on in the shopping center? Looks like we got him. We've all been told that his sacred gear was sealed, according to the supplementary rules, which meant that he would inevitably use his vampire powers instead, right? We assumed that he would turn into a bunch of bats to scout around the building. So the chairwoman had an idea, to use our home base itself against him. Their home base? The grocery store at the end of the mall? First, one of our familia members started acting all suspicious. That would get his attention, right? So more of those bats gathered to check out the situation. And when they were all there, he was ours. If something happened to those bats when they were all together, Gasper would revert to his true form. And we made sure that he transferred back somewhere very specific, right near one of the vampire's biggest weaknesses, a display stand filled with garlic. Our base is a grocery store on the west side of the mall. There was already plenty of stuff lying around, so it wasn't that hard. So they had taken him out while the stench of garlic had incapacitated him? Impossible. I hadn't even considered that possibility. Simple, right? But I'm guessing the strategy won't work on him again. The chairwoman had guessed that no matter how much training he did, he wouldn't be able to get over his weakness to garlic. It was a stroke of luck that we had so much at our home base, but defeat is still defeat. So Saji's saying that he exploited that vulnerability? No. No matter how much effective that strategy, Gasper should still be able to put up with a bit of garlic. Gasper, this isn't funny. We are so going to train you to overcome your fear of garlic once this is all over. I'll replace all your regular food with garlic rice and garlic toast. You can't drop out of the fight without so much of it conducting the surveillance properly. I was upset now and began activating my sacred gear when... Partner, you had better not double your power here. Now that you're connected to that guy, he'll drain any excess energy you charge. Traeger was right. Saji's sacred gear sapped the power of whatever was connected to it. Right now, it was tethered to my sacred gear, so powering up was way too big of a risk. The only way to sever that line will be to blow it away with the aftershock from activating your balance breaker. I wanted to avoid using my trump card, but now I had no choice but to activate it right away. Start. Countdown. The time until my balance breaker was ready appeared on the jewel on the back of the gauntlet. Now that the transformation has started, I couldn't use my regular sacred gear abilities. There was nothing left to do but dodge Saji's attack for a full 2 minutes. This was a short, blitz-style game. Kiba and Zenobia were the ones to go in for the enemy king, so once my armor formed, I needed to cause the biggest ruckus I could to distract everyone. I began to move back to distance myself, but was pulled back by the line, losing my balance. Saji's sacred gear was a real pain. I'm not letting you go away, Hyodo. He leaped forward and delivered a powerful kick to my gut. I doubled over at the force of the blow. Still, I was able to avoid the worst by tensing up my abdomen. My basic training had paid off. I was confident in my physical condition. I thought I hit you pretty hard there. Looks like you really put yourself through the paces, huh? Having failed to inflict as much damage as he intended, Saji flashed me a wry grin. It looked like escape was out of the question. I would have to attack head-on. With nowhere else to run, I charged straight for Saji. I wasn't particularly skilled in hand-to-hand fighting, but I had done a lot of physical exercise. My blows had force behind them. I just needed to trust my body. I clenched my fist and lashed out at Saji, but he fired another line from his right arm. Was he trying to suck my power away? I readied myself, but instead of striking me, the snake flew right past me to the line in a nearby shop. Nimura, put on those glasses we took from the store just before. Saji and his junior both pulled out a pair of shades from their pockets, donning them. It only took me a moment to figure out what they were up to. Everything erupted into a brilliant, luminous blaze, blinding Konako and me. Damn it. Looks like they got you. He connected that line to the lightning equipment and sent it to overdrive by pouring a little energy into it. Don't act so calm, Drake. This is bad. I can't even open my... Another blow to the gut. This time, I hadn't had the chance to tense my muscles, and so I took the full force of the attack. Then, when I was hunched over, Saji delivered another strike to my back. Ow, that hurt. As the pain welled up inside me, Saji brought a deliberating uppercut to my jaw. The series of strikes brought me to the floor. Gah, he got me. Saji had certainly claimed the upper hand early, and I suffered for it. The impact of that blow to my chin had left my teeth rattling. I must have a cut inside of my mouth as I could taste blood. My eyesight returned. Lying face down on the ground, I looked up. Saji was dashing straight towards me, with his fist about to unleash a massive demonic energy. He was preparing to deliver the final blow. I quickly pulled myself up and rolled to my side. The blast left a huge crater on the floor. What force! That was definitely a finishing move. Talk about dangerous. I had almost left the stage before even summoning my balance breaker. Had I been knocked out there, I would have been unable to scold Gasper for his lackluster performance. Not bad, Saji. I'm serious, Hyodo. I'm going to take you down, Red Dragon Emperor. His eyes were filled with determination. I could literally see his passion. Saji raised his arm into the air, preparing to fire another attack. Another spear of demonic power sped forth. That said, it wasn't particularly large. Saji was probably taking pains not to damage the building. Still, that strike had more than enough to defeat an opponent like me. I dodged the blast, and the shot behind me exploded in a burst of energy. I thought Saji's magic was as awful as mine. Where was he pulling the strength from? At that moment, my eyes opened wide and realized his sacred gear was connected to his chest, to his heart, by another one of his tethers. Saji, you're using your own life to fuel your attacks? That's right. I've never had that much demonic power. This is the only way I could throw around big strikes. As you see, I'm using my sacred gear to convert my life force into raw power. I'm putting my life on the line, I guess you could say. Are you trying to kill yourself? Saji gave me an intense look. Yeah, that's it exactly. I intended to beat you, even if it cost me everything. Do you realize how humiliating it is, having people mock your dreams? The chairwoman and I would do everything to prove them wrong. This match is being broadcast throughout the underworld. We'll have to show those jerks who laughed us down what the Citri Familia is made of. Something from the past suddenly flashed before my eyes. Yeah, Saji now was just like I had been when I barged straight into the president's engagement party. I haven't paid any heed for my own life, simply pouring my effort into saving my master. I would have kept going. I would have tried to rescue her, even if I died in the process. Saji, you're just like I was back then. We continued to engage in a fierce contest of blows and dodges, while Konako and Saji's Jr. did the same. Konako excelled in hand-to-hand combat, but her opponent was fighting well, and the contest between them quickly grew heated. However, the moment Konako's fist grazed her opponent's cheek, the battle shifted. From where I was standing, it looked like Saji's Jr. was glancing around in worry. Was she taking damage from the shockwaves caused by Konako's punches? Konako didn't miss a beat. A pale white aura enveloped her fist as she slammed it into her opponent's chest. A sharp, merciless sound echoed through the building, and Saji's Jr. collapsed to her knees. I focused my ki into my hand when I punched you. It's damaged the veins running through your body, which means that you won't be able to control your demonic power. It should also keep you from moving, stated Konako. It reminded me of something Azazel said to us. Konako's natural fighting style involves a mixture of sage magic and hand-to-hand combat. Her attacks are designed to wound her opponents and disrupt the life force circulating through them. Yet, if she lets herself be consumed by those abilities, she must stop immediately. Sage magic can be employed to read and manipulate ki, but it also makes one susceptible to evil and the malice that fills the world. Her sister became what she is because she took too much of that evil into herself. That was the secret of Konako's strikes, attacks using ki. Each hit wounded you while weakening your body. The ki of Konako's fist passed into her opponents and incapacitated them. Even if the punch itself wasn't powerful, so long as that concentration of ki could reach its mark, the effect was huge. Or at least, that was what I read in a book somewhere. I didn't have any particular specialist knowledge on human anatomy. Who knew Konako was hiding such an impressive skill? If she used it well, she could end up being the most effective fighter in our familia. I'm sorry, Saji. The first-year girl managed before her body was enveloped in light, disappearing from the battlefield. Konako had injured her enough that she was being removed from the fight. One of Sona Citri's pawns has been retired, sounded the announcement. Now both teams were down one piece. I'm going to be a Hellcat. I won't lose. Now that my cute little underclassman was acting cool, I had to put on a good show as well. Sadly, I was struggling to avoid balls of energy that Saji kept hurling my way. With so much power packed into them, all it would take was for one of them to merely graze me, and I'll be done for. He was literally pouring his soul into them. Saji's incredible strength was not without a price, though. At this rate, he won't be able to keep it up. Issei, I'll help, Konako stated as she began to approach us. No, Konako. This is between Saji and me. Konako shook her head. This is a team battle. We need to work together. Yeah, you're right about that. But Konako, Saji hasn't made any direct moves against you while he's been fighting me. If he wanted to, he could have attached one of his lines to you and used it to absorb your powers. Why do you think he hasn't? Konako stood there in silence, unable to answer my inquiry. Saji gave her a weak smile. Sorry, Konako Tojo. I want to fight Hyodo one-on-one and beat the Red Dragon Emperor myself. I told you all right. We're serious about our dream. We're going to build a school, one here in the underworld, free of discrimination. And I'm going to be a teacher. That's my goal. Everyone in the underworld is watching us. That's why it's so important that I, a pawn, defeat my fellow pawn Issei Hyodo, the Red Dragon Emperor. I'll do it. I'm letting it be known here and now. I'm going to be a teacher. Saji's expression broke no argument. Turning to Konako, I said, That's how it is. If I try to run away from the challenge, it will make me look bad, right? Saji's my friend, so I have no choice but to take him on in earnest. I have to. Otherwise, I'll never be able to show my face to the press again. Yeah, Saji and I were very much alike. We were both straightforward fools. Hearing us out, Konako lowered her fist and stepped back. Thank you, Saji and I said to Konako in unison. Why didn't Saji attach one of his lines to my right arm as well as my sacred gear? I wondered. He wants you to keep you from activating your sacred gear's doubling abilities. He knows that if he absorbs your power and the boosted gear's energy at the same time, his body won't be able to cope with it at all. That boy is trying to drain your power now to stop your balance breaker countdown and force you back to your normal form. What a complicated sacred gear. This isn't going nowhere. Saji let out a sigh and summoned up an enormous energy sphere in his hands. That thing was huge enough to blow away everything around us. At least, that's what I thought initially. Suddenly, it compressed into a miniaturized size. A massive demonic power about as big as a softball. This should be enough to destroy you completely, while leaving your surroundings undamaged. Saji was breathing heavily, his shoulders shaking. He had poured all of his being into that attack. Yeah, he meant to finish me off. He let out a chuckle. I was so jealous of you, you know. You're the pride of your master, the Red Dragon Emperor. Everyone knows about you. We're both pawns, but what do I have? Nothing. So I'm going to earn my place. I'm going to win my master's pride and confidence by crushing you. Saji roared. I had no idea he saw me that way. Regardless, I wasn't going to be defeated. I had my own dreams, and the press had hers. Seeing them through meant pushing ourselves to the limit. Saji fired the blast at me with all of his strength. I hastened to avoid it, but Saji released the line that attached me to his boosted gear and launched it towards my feet. Thanks to that, my boosted gear was now tied to the ground by that tether. I tried to pull on it, but it was so taut that I couldn't free myself. This is bad. At this rate, I wouldn't be able to avoid the oncoming attack. My balance breaker was just a few seconds away from being ready, but it still wasn't quick enough. I had no choice but to brace myself. The projectile was coming my way. The moment it collided with me, the massive demonic energy split open, its aura enveloping my surroundings. In that instant, divide! A white gauntlet enveloped my right arm, catching the attack. Only half of what I'd been expecting hit me. I had saved myself using the ability I'd taken from the White Dragon Emperor. Still, I couldn't take much more. If Saji hit me again, I was done for. You divided my attack? Saji exclaimed in shock. I worked out how to activate this power during my first training in the mountains. It has a bunch of conditions, though. First, the chance of it actually working is less than 10%. It's a real gamble. Second, this one eats into my life force, regardless of whether or not it successfully triggers. Just using it shaves away my lifespan. Talk about a scary bet, huh? The risk had paid off. but my time in this realm had grown shorter. Having done what I was supposed to do, the white gauntlet quickly dissipated. I could still use it, but I couldn't maintain its form for long. Still, a success was a success, and the boosted gears countdown was complete. I'm also risking it all. I can't afford to let anyone stop me. Not now. Let's do this, Saji. Activate boosted gear. Walsh Dragon, balance breaker. My Sacred Gear's voice rang out in response to my cry. An oversized, dazzling red aura enveloped me, coalescing into a suit of armor. At that moment, a wave of energy swept through me. Almost 10 minutes had passed since the match had gotten underway, and I hadn't quit my boosted gear's scale mail. Our raiding game had only begun a short while ago. I, Yuto Kiba, along with Zenovia, had just entered the multi-story car park. We proceeded with caution through the dimly lit garage. Perhaps we both had long experiences at these kinds of secret reconnaissance missions to thank for it. But we were making good progress. I took the lead, confirmed that there wasn't anyone lying in wait for us in the shadows, and then called for Zenovia to approach from the rear. We repeated this pattern several times as we gradually made our way through the building. The plan was to go down the ramp connecting to the second floor parking lot to the first floor one. The elevators were fully functional, but we didn't want to risk getting caught in the ambush. Thus, we had no choice but to take the safest, most reliable path. After making it down the ramp to the first floor, I spotted a silhouette directly ahead. Looking closely, I could see that it was a familiar figure, a glasses-clad woman with black hair. I knew that face. That was Tsubaki Shinra, Sona Citri's queen and student council vice chairwoman. She was clutching a halberd in her hands. Right, I heard that pole arms were her weapon of choice. She was supposedly highly skilled with them. Greetings, Yuto Kiba, Zenovia. I knew I would find you here, she stated coolly. Two others appeared, one flanking Shinra from either side. A tall woman and a slender young lady wielding a katana. The taller of the pair was called Yura, a rook. The sword-wielding girl's name was Meguri, a knight. Yura was known to be particularly skilled in martial arts, while Meguri belonged to a family who made a living exterminating evil spirits. Chairwoman Soda saw fit to dispatch 3 pieces to the parking garage. She had read us well. They were firmly in control of the area. Soda must have anticipated that Zenovia and I were the ones most likely to attack. Zenovia unsheathed her blade that she was carrying on her back, while I summoned up a holy demon sword. Zenovia wasn't wielding her Durandal, given the rule against damaging the area, and the fact that she couldn't properly control Durandal's destructive might. She decided against using it. One of Ria's Gremi's bishops has retired. An announcement informed us that one of our allies was gone. It was difficult to imagine Azia being eliminated so soon. I didn't know how they'd done it, but they must have defeated Gasper. You're surprisingly calm, Shinra remarked. Yeah, I wouldn't be much use in a fight if I couldn't handle casualties, I responded with composure. Internally, I was seething with frustration over knowing that my friend was hurt, however. Gasper, they probably got you before you even had the chance to put on much of a show. My sword will fight twice as hard for you. Jeez, he needs to put more effort in training himself up. Zenovia sighed beside me. She was keeping calm as well, but her eyes betrayed her anger. Still, you've gotten taken out my cute little junior. I'm going to have to avenge him. Her body was emanating a tremendous sense of pressure. Even I felt my skin tingling. Zenovia had a surprisingly soft spot towards her friends. No matter how she behaved, she was fond of Gasper. She wouldn't accept the news of his defeat lying down. We flashed each other determined grins, readied our weapons, and lunged. Shinra and I crossed swords, as did Zenovia and Meguri. Sparks went flying at the force of the impact. The ear-rending sound of metal pushing against metal rang out. It was at that point that Meguri realized what Zenovia was wielding, and took a hurried step back. A holy sword? She exclaimed. Indeed, Zenovia was armed with a legendary holy sword. Yeah, this is Ascalon. I'm borrowing it from Issei. All three of our opponents were stiffened at this revelation. Our instructor, Azazel, had examined how it merged with the boosted gear. Issei, can you unequip it? He asked. And so we learned that the holy sword could indeed be removed from Issei's sacred gear. With that knowledge, Azazel had hurried to implement a training schedule so that Zenobia could adapt using the Ascalon. She had spent a good part of her summer familiarizing herself with the weapon, from what I gathered. As the Ascalon now possessed both dragon-slaying abilities and the Red Dragon Emperor's inherent powers, it had evolved into a potent armament. It might not have been a match for Durandal's destructive force, but when one considered how much easier it was to use, it was clear that it could be employed in a much broader range of circumstances. Of course, that meant that Issei was left without it. All we could do was hope that the decision didn't backfire on us. Zenobia and I fell into a fierce battle against our three adversaries. We were handling Shinra and Meguri well enough, but it was Yura, the Rook, who worried me. It was anyone's guess whether she'd go after Zenobia or myself first. On guard against her, I continued to lash out my holy demon sword at the vice chairwoman. My blade, along with Zenovia's, reverberated with divine energy. If we managed to land a strike on our opponents, the damage would be considerable. Given that healing techniques were restricted, such a blow would probably be enough to retire them. A single hit meant victory. Zenobia, rapidly switching between offense and defense, suddenly opened a rift in the air. Normally, this is how she summoned the Durandal, but not this time. A holy aura wafted out from the rift in the air, enveloping the Ascalon. Shinra gawked in realization. You're absorbing Durandal's holy aura without retrieving it? Zenobia replied with a smirk. Yeah, I found an interesting use for it. I managed how to make it work during my training. I'm more than capable of pulling it off now. The president and Azazel regarded the Durandal as a valuable asset, but thought it was a waste of potential that Zenobia couldn't freely wield it. The Durandal was an incredibly mighty sword. If handled poorly, it would cause random destruction. Zenobia had been able to control it to some extent, but it was probably more accurate to say that she was at the weapon's mercy. One day, she might learn to master the Durandal, but it was too perilous to recklessly use until then. Thus, Azazel had come up with an idea. Can you draw only the Durandal's aura from the dimension where you keep it? If so, you could try absorbing its strength with the Ascalon, or one of Kiba's holy demon swords. I had been flabbergasted by this suggestion. The Durandal didn't need to leave its extra dimension to exude its incredible holy power, but if that aura could be drawn out, it could be channeled into another object for use. The resulting effect wasn't as impressive as Durandal itself, but it was undoubtedly one of infinite potential. Zenobia was wielding that power now through the Ascalon. Azazel, governor of the fallen angels and former nemesis, had presented us with an option. I was beyond ecstatic that he had joined our side. Zenobia slashed at her opponent with the Ascalon, fully clad in Durandal's energy. Silver sparks erupted in the parking lot. The knight, Meguri, possessed considerable skill, but Zenobia was gradually winning out. Zenobia wasn't one to let an opening slip by, quickly cornering her opponent. She had her. However, that was when another figure stepped into the fray. The Rook, Yura. She raised both of her hands in front of her and... Reverse! Zenobia let loose of her attack, but the holy aura inverted into a demonic one. Yura deftly stopped the Ascalon between her bare hands and sent it flying away. The Rook began to move into a follow-through, but Zenobia swiftly regained her composure and evaded the kick. The force of Yura's legs sent several vehicles flying through the garage. A direct hit from that would be incredibly dangerous. I was left speechless by the phenomenon that I just witnessed. Somehow, a holy aura had become a demonic one. Yura had called out the word reverse. So, had she somehow altered the energy? Was that the special ability of hers? Her sacred gear? Whatever the reason, it was sure to pose a problem. That must have been one of those so-called counter abilities. It was an unusual case, but if Yura used it in conjunction with Meguri, Zenobia and I would be in trouble. Ascalon's holy power had been reversed, becoming demonic. As demonic powers were fueled demons, Zenovia's weapon, would only inflict normal damage on one of us. Simply put, the holy sword had effectively been reduced to an ordinary blade. Zenobia may have possessed a masterful skill set, but she was used to fighting with holy swords, and this development had no doubt put her on the back foot. Another counter like this could spell defeat. Well played, Citri Familia. If that's how it's going to be. Zenobia, let's change places. I called out, and the two of us quickly switched opponents. This was better. Against my holy demon sword, which used both divine and demonic powers, a swapping ability would be useless. As expected, Yura showed no signs of using that technique against me. Instead, she and Megari launched a joint attack. A short distance away, Zenobia and Shinra had begun to clash. Zenovia's onslaught was so fierce that she drove Shinra up against the wall. She had her. Zenobia, finish it. As if reading my mind, Zenobia raised the Ascalon and moved in for a winning blow. She could do this. If we took down the opposing team's queen, we would have a much better tactical position. This match is ours, she declared as she brought her weapon to bear on the other girl. From my point of view, it looked like a direct hit, but... Sacred Gear, Mirror Alice. A huge ornate mirror appeared out of nowhere, shielding Shinra. Nonetheless, Zenobia followed through with her strike, carving straight through the thing. With an ear-rending noise, the broken-looking glass sent a powerful wave of force back at Zenobia. Flustered and confused, she spat a mouthful of blood onto the ground. When this mirror is destroyed, it reflects the powerful strike back twofold. Yes, I'm a counter-type fighter. Yuto Kiba, it was a mistake to pick Zenobia, a power type, against me, Shinra said with a sneer. Falling onto the ground in pain, Zenobia continued to hack up red liquid. She had fallen prey to the trap. I hadn't heard anything about this ability of Shinra's. Perhaps she only developed it recently. Now, all that remains is to deal with you, Yuto Kiba. The three women began to approach. I raced to grab Zenobia and hurried to conceal ourselves in the nearby shadows. I laid her down behind a car and rummaged through the first aid items I had taken from the drugstore earlier. Our enemies had played us like a fiddle. I never expected to go against two counter-type combatants. From the looks of it, Chairwoman Sona was aiming to eliminate us first. She must have correctly predicted that Zenobia and I would form an offensive group of our team's strategy. Undoubtedly, we were a considerable threat to the opposition, with our holy swords and above-average speed. The Chairwoman had compensated for that by sending 3 of her pieces, each capable of balancing out the weaknesses of the other 2. Had she foreseen every move? Zenovia's condition was serious. She had fallen victim to twice the power of the Rondel and Ascalon combined. If Shinra's Sacred Gear could send back holy attacks so easily, she could instantly retire either of us. In the worst cases, the result could be lethal. Given her injuries, it wouldn't be long before Zenobia was forced to leave the battlefield. The next attack she took would undoubtedly be her last. Our stock of Phoenix Tears was with the President. I had no restoration skills at my disposal. Zenobia grabbed my hand. Leave, Kiba. I'm going to be retired any minute now. However, I merely continued to treat her wounds. I know, but I swore not to abandon my friends so easily. How sentimental. You almost sound like Issei. She responded with a smile. Thanks. I do wish I could be more like him in some ways. Yeah, I wish my spirit was just as strong as his. He was incredible. The kind of person who never gave up. Issei fully understood how weak he was, but still, he was always ready to stand against anyone. He always spoke depreciatingly of himself, yet, in truth, he was more introspective than any of us. In terms of raw strength, I was probably no longer a match for him. The amount of effort and perseverance he had poured into improving himself was remarkable. His continuous strides to better himself were worthy of admiration. You want to be like Issei? Like a pervert? That can stay Issei's thing. I do wish I had his sense of determination, though. Zenobia let out a weak giggle. That wouldn't suit you. I had to agree. I know, right? But so long as I can move just a single finger, I won't let anyone take me down. I see. Are you telling me you're going to keep fighting until I'm completely spent? You're awful. If I'm going to fall, I want to keep moving as much as possible until it happens. Even if it's 1 more centimeter, 1 more millimeter, anything less would leave me with regret. One of Sona Citri's pawns has retired. An announcement. It sounded like someone had taken out a member of the other team. Zenobia and I had to keep going too. The sound of our opponent's footsteps approached. Zenobia, it won't be long before you retire, but before you go, there's something I want to show you. I stood up to meet my 3 enemies. Are you prepared? Shinra asked as she approached, readying her halberd. A small rift opened up in the air behind me. Zenovia's handiwork. It was perfectly situated. Out of sight of each of my opponents, the next thing I knew, the Durandal's aura flowed into me. Now, Zenovia, let's show him what you and I, Ria's Grummary's 2 knights, have created. A barrage of holy demon swords burst into being throughout the parking lot. Individually, their auras might not have been particularly potent, but with Durandal's powers mixed in, they were a force to be reckoned with. Durandal, birth! The attack instantly skewered Yura and Meguri, who were engulfed at once in the light before disappearing. 2 down. Shinra appeared to have somehow escaped and had vanished from the parking garage. As I held her in my arms, Zenovia's body began to glow. Kiba, that was a good move. A satisfied smile rose on her lips as she departed from the arena. I saw her off with a smile. Yeah, if we're going to team up again, we should be able to make more holy swords bloom. There was a moment where Zenobia was weightless, and the next instant, she vanished from my grip. With that fleeting sound, the holy swords that sprung up all throughout the parking lot crumbled away,